Okay, hi everyone. Thank you. Today I have with me Yamini and Courtney, and we are going to discuss the very, I think, crucial role of being an expat, being a mother perhaps, is reinventing your career. And obviously, when you expatriate to a new country, you a lot of times have given up your career, or maybe you don't have a career that is geographically independent, and so you had to give it up and start something new. And then also, when you become a mother, sometimes you have to reinvent your career, and things change. You need different working hours or different workloads or whatever it is to accommodate your family and your new family dynamic as you go. And so this blab is really going to be a fun panel discussion where we get to know Yamini and Courtney and find out what they did and how they're doing and how they're doing. So welcome. Yamini, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Yamini Someshwar. I'm from Orange County, California, and I've been living here in Sweden for almost 12 years. Before I moved here, I was an art director at a very large tech firm in Orange County. After coming here, it was really hard to find work, and having to learn the language took some time. But I still, I guess, as an American, I was always like, I got to get this. I mean, I never gave up, and I went and tried to get some interviews at some local ad agencies, even though I didn't speak Swedish. And they were nice enough to meet with me and stuff, but they politely just never called me back. So I don't know, something in me just said, don't give up what you're doing, because once you leave your career, you can't really get back to it. It kind of doesn't, I don't know. I just felt like it wasn't something I wanted to do. So I just decided to start my own company, which is really hard at the beginning. But slowly but surely, I just started meeting people, and there were some local business networking events that I would go to, and my Swedish got better. So that was a big, big help.
So what's your company?
It's called Idea Bureau Plus 46.
Okay.
Which basically in English translates to the Bureau of Ideas. I have to say, I know one of the points that was going to be asked was if I reinvented my career after moving here. And I think I kind of did, because I do the design, but I realized that English was something that Swedes really wanted to get better at. And a lot of people can speak Swedish, but they're not very confident about speaking it. So I got a call one day from someone that's like, hey, are you good at teaching conversational English? And I'd never done it before, but I said, sure. And that's led to a total side part of my company now. So part of it's design and part of it's communication. So I go out and teach a lot of conversational English. And that in turn has led me to be a teacher it's called hemspråklärare. So I teach English to kids of other expats, and this is a career to be a teacher that I never thought I'd be, but it's something I just went with and flew with, and I love it.
Did you have to get special training to be a teacher? Or
as a hemspråklärare, you don't need any kind of teaching degree. That's the one little clause. So that's what's great about it. But now, after doing it for like 4 years, I'm actually thinking about getting my teaching degree. I have a degree in graphic design from Arizona State University. So I just went in and talked to them about, I just need to supplement some classes. So yeah.
And for those who are watching who aren't familiar, so Hemspråk is basically like a course that you can enroll your children in. What are the ages?
It's mother tongue like support.
Right.
Ages, I've got 3 different groups. So I've got ages from 6 to 16.
Okay. Right. So you're teaching children, expats who speak English at home, you're teaching them proper English at a level that is appropriate for them as a native speaker, as opposed to the class they would be stuck in with their
Exactly, because most of these kids, well, the kids that have parents that speak English at home, their level's pretty good. So what's being taught in Swedish school isn't that level at all. It's pretty basic. So it's the more the better, and it just it helps them out, and it's free.
Yeah.
For them, so
that's excellent. Okay, Courtney, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little where you came from, what you did in your previous life, and what you're doing now?
Sure, yeah. So my name is Courtney Lundeen, I have lived in Sweden for 3.5 years now. I'm originally from Colorado, but I spent a lot of time up in upstate New York, up in Lake Placid, New York, um, because I was an athlete. I was a luge athlete for about 18 years.
Oh, wow.
So that was what my former life was. I was an athlete, and I traveled around Europe and competed in World Cups, World Championships, and also competed in 2 Olympic Games. So that was my what seems like a completely different life now. That's what I used to do. Then I went to school to study small business because I always knew I wanted to run a small business or have my own business of some sort. So after meeting my husband, who's Swedish, and that's why I live in Sweden now, but we always kind of had like our long-term goal of being self-employed and also being in the healthcare industry. And so now we're finally coming forward with our dream, and we have 2 gyms now that we're running, and I'm doing personal training, nutrition, and also sleep. So I help parents with sleep. So that led me to kind of recreate my career when I moved here, because I didn't really have, anything specific I was going into other than nutrition and training. And when we started our gyms, and after I had my daughter, I kind of combined all 3 elements of sleep, nutrition, and sleep to form my own company called Living Healthy Happy. And what that does is basically allows families to live healthy lives through those 3 elements, because those are the core elements that we need, right, to live good lives and to feel happy and healthy and have energy to do things that we want to do. So that's kind of how my career has been shaped since living here.
Wow. Well, I would say being an Olympic athlete, you're going to have a point where you're going to have to reinvent yourself anyway. And it sounds like you were already like doing that in the US and then expatriating.
Right.
Is that
right?
It
was a weird transition. I kind of went through like 3 transitions all at one time. I went through retiring as an athlete, going into so-called, normal life or whatever, and going through that kind of culture shock, and then moving to Sweden, and then going through that, small culture shock, and then becoming a mom. So it's been quite a transition over the last 3.5 years.
Yeah.
Really trying to figure out, okay, what am I doing? How do I, reinvent life and work and career and family, really.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's really interesting. Have you found that language has been a barrier at all, or?
Yes and no. Granted, Swedes speak great, perfect English or close to perfect English. So speaking English isn't a problem. I think it's kind of hindered me learning Swedish because it's so easy.
Yeah.
But, after a while, Swedes do want to speak Swedish. So that's what I'm doing now, is I'm learning Swedish in the mornings and then working in the afternoons, because I do want to speak Swedish. And my daughter speaks Swedish. I mean, like, in a couple of years, how would I feel if I don't know the language she's speaking, or I don't know everything she's talking about? And it frustrates me so much when you're trying to just
so quickly.
I felt like once I knew about 50% Swedish and could speak about 50%, that the Swedes kind of accepted me more.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, it's a weird thing, but it's up until then they're kind of like, oh, I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to deal with you.
I think it's true. I think language is the key that opens a lot of doors. Yeah. And as long as you are not speaking the local language, I think it's going to hinder your ability to have a thriving career, regardless of where you are. Like, even, I mean, my business as a consultant or as a sole proprietor, I still have to file my taxes in Swedish. Like, I can do all my business in English, but all of my business related dealings are in the local language. And so if you don't know that, it still is a pain to deal with all the time. So
I was told by a Swedish person why they avoid talking to you when you don't speak good Swedish is that they're really kind of upset about their own level of English. Like, they don't want to make any mistakes. So instead of making mistakes, they don't talk at all. And sometimes that feels like them being really rude, but that's not really the case.
Yeah.
Being embarrassed about making stupid mistakes.
Well, and it's like, I'm embarrassed about making stupid mistakes, but I just plow through it.
Yeah, same thing.
I know I probably sound like I'm 5 years old and I'm like, cat, dog, run. Like we go together.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, we understand you. They think it's great. Like they think it's wonderful that I try at all. But I feel like I'm, my 2-year-old daughter and I are on the same level. It's just like, so you guys really talked about sort of like your former life and your training. And okay, what would you say is the level of enjoyment in your previous life versus where you are now? Has the reinvention led to greater personal satisfaction, greater professional satisfaction, or did you have to kind of balance your professional with your personal goals?
I'm totally happy with everything that's happened.
I
find it so it's such a journey. It's so like, I don't know. I find everything. And I think Sweden is such a great place to start your own company. There's so much support. It's, I don't know. And being American, I think there's a positive with that. The American brand is looked at a positive light. So I love it.
Okay. That's good. Courtney?
I would say it's completely two different things. I loved what I was doing before, but as an athlete, you always have an expiration date, right?
Yeah.
So you either stay within your sport or you move on. So it's hard to say. It's just because it's like apples and oranges, I mean, now I'm really happy. I love the career that I've created for myself. I love that my long-term goal is finally coming, into actually real life. And, the different element too is that I have a daughter now too, and I have a family, and my husband and I are actually finally living together where we spent so many years apart. So it's so different, I would say I'm equally happy here compared to my previous career as an athlete. So I would say I'm equally happy. I have no regrets as to moving here. The beginning was hard though. I mean, there's no doubt about that, where I think I finally hit that, like, okay, that curve that you get over, eventually, whenever you hit it as
period,
you hit that curve of like, oh my God, how am I going to live here? How am I going to make it? And then all of a sudden you just do. Like one day it's just better. I don't know if you just decide, okay, this is like where I am now, this is where I'm living, there's no going back. But there's that.
I think by not giving up, you're kind of rewarded. Say
that again?
I think by not giving up, when you're at that point, you're kind of rewarded with like, I'm going to make it a little easier for you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
It's like, okay, she's not hard enough.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard when you first move. I mean, no matter if it's a conscious choice, or not. I mean, it's something that hits you like a brick when you come into a different culture, where, especially if you're thinking, okay, well, I've traveled a lot. Like my former life, I traveled a ton. I was thinking this will be no problem. This will be fine. I know it'll be hard, but I'm used to traveling. And then it kind of just hits you that, okay, things are very different. When you've been here for a while, the kind of sparkliness wears off, and all of a sudden you're like, okay, I just bought the wrong chicken for the 4th time. Okay, I don't know what this means, and I just bought the wrong thing of that, and and that kind of starts to frustrate you. So I think there's that time where you go through where you're like, oh, what did I do? But then finally, you start to learn language more, you start to understand the culture a lot better, and then you feel like, okay, I live here, and you don't get so upset when a Swede answers you with only a short intake of air, and you're like, what was that? Now you're like, oh, right, okay.
Where do you guys feel like your priorities for your career changed after being a mom, or kind of at the same time? I know, Courtney, for you, it was like expatriation and parenthood was all like kind of in one, so it might be tougher to tangle out, but meaning, what about?
My daughter is 8.5 now. She's almost 9. And I've had my company now for about 5 years. So I think for me, I wanted to be a role model for her. I mean, so I that's why I didn't want to give up what I was doing, doing what I love. So I don't know. Of course, I don't know. I just being a good role model for her is what kept me going.
Yeah. Let's see. To answer that question, I started my company when my daughter was just about a year old. So that whole time, I don't know what I was thinking when I had a baby, right? I just thought like, oh, I'll just continue life as normal, but I'll have a baby. Because I was still finishing my master's at the time. And then afterwards, I don't know. Like I said, I just take on way too much sometimes. But I still wanted to, start working right away because you're just used to doing that as an American. I haven't had a child in the US, but you just think in your head, like it's drilled into your head, like you'll be working 6 weeks after you have a baby. And so I was like, of course I'll be working afterwards,
Right.
And when I wasn't, I don't know, I just felt like, okay, I'm not doing anything. I'm not doing enough. Even though we were dealing with like severe sleep deprivation in our household, I mean, severe. For some reason, I still felt like I have to do something. And I still wanted to create. I know I don't know. Maybe it was the sleep deprivation that like made me crazy. I don't know, but like it was also moving too. So I still was at that point where I hadn't settled completely into Sweden, and so I was still at that point where you're like, what am I doing here? What do I do? I'm not working. Oh my gosh, like I need to do something.
Mm-hmm.
And so I still wanted to get my roots here and start doing something. And so like maybe that was a little bit of my rush of starting the business at the same time, but I also saw an opportunity, with dealing with a sleep deprived child and myself. I talked to so many parents who were sleep deprived as well. And so I was like, wow, this doesn't exist in Sweden. And so here's my opportunity to be able to combine what I want to be doing along with this new element that isn't really here. In the States, it's a huge deal, like sleep training, sleep consulting, and everything. It's becoming such a big thing.
Everything, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, but that doesn't exist here. So I also saw a window of opportunity that I can combine the three things that I really enjoy doing and make it all work. So.
I think that I don't know if you guys have found this as well, but that Sweden is definitely small pond, and so it's quite easy to be up any type of fish in a pond because you're like. And I think that like I never would have considered being self-employed in the U.S. Like that was not my track. My track was public health, and I'm going to be working with government agencies or in the private sector, but I'm going to have like a job and an employer and a W-2. And like, that's how my life is going to go. And self-employed, like, oh, that's too risky. Whereas in Sweden, it's just like,
it's no big deal.
Most expats are self-employed. Like that is just what it is. It's much harder to get that like Swedish job than it is to reinvent yourself and just say, okay, I'm going to be an entrepreneur now, and this is missing. And especially coming from the US, we do have all these things where we're like, oh, like this is a job. This is an actual role that people do in the US, like, and it's not here. So I can do that. And so you almost have more, I guess, gumption. And maybe it is our American like tendency to culturally to take more risks or to do things that are outside the box. And so I think entrepreneurship lends itself to American expats. And then in Sweden, it's just such a small country that you can do it.
And word of mouth, I mean, it helps so much here. It really does. A small pond thing, like when someone starts talking about it, that's best answer that we can get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. What advice would you give to someone, maybe not someone in Sweden, but just anyone who is going to be changing countries and needing to start or continue a career or start a new career?
Well, first is learn the language. That's for sure. At least make an attempt. I think any language, just make that attempt is really crucial. I guess it depends on if you're wanting to work for a big company or not, but if you're planning your move, do your research beforehand and maybe try to make some contacts before you get into Sweden because, just like the US, it's all about contacts. I think it's even more important here just because it is such a small country and once you do meet someone, you're like, oh yeah, so-and-so and so-and-so knows who you know, and all that kind of stuff kind of goes together. So it's really important to just get out there too and network because most likely you're going to run into people that know so many other people or the same people. It's kind of crazy, honestly.
I I think the cool thing here, I mean, this is very Swedish related, but there's a place called Nyföretag Centrum, which is a place that's great for starting. I mean, it's like a business center and where you get all your questions answered. So it's where you can, you know, ball some ideas around with someone and just get that first little kick of encouragement, I guess.
I actually was there myself, and they had a lot of information. I still look at some of their seminars to go to.
Yeah.
They actually offer coaching as well. So, I mean, that is such a gem in this system that it makes it so much easier for small businesses to really thrive.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I'll definitely have to check that out myself.
So, yeah, you need to.
Do you think expatriating limited or opened up your career options for you personally?
I would say both. When I first moved here, I felt extremely limited. I mean, I was searching for jobs, and even though I spoke English, I didn't know Swedish. And for some reason, that was closing so many doors. Yeah. And so at that time, I felt so limited. Like, what am I going to do? And then I ended up doing some jobs that I was, not to be like tooting my own horn, but I was overqualified for. And I felt like I had taken steps back where I was like, oh gosh, you know, like I've already done this kind of job in the US. I've already done my time. You know, I don't want to be doing this again. And you feel like such a child, you know, when you move to another country, because you feel like you're starting over in so many ways. Like right now I'm learning how to drive, right? I'm learning the system and trying to get my license. So you feel like a child in that aspect. So in that case, like when I first got here, I felt so limited. But then after a while, after I was here for a bit, and then my husband runs his own business too. And so that opened a lot of doors for me as well, just because he was already in that sort of world. And then I was able to jump into that fairly easily myself. I mean, it made it hard because I didn't know a lot of Swedish. And so that was frustrating at first. But having those resources like Nyföretag Centrum, like, really opened a lot of doors. I just went out. I just did as much as I could. I made as many connections as I could. So once I had my own business going, I felt like my opportunities here are so much bigger than back in the States.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, connecting to being a mom, I mean, even those were connections for me. I mean, all the moms at Doggies, you know, that's another great place to just kind of figure out who's working where, what are they doing. That type of social contact really helps out when you don't know anyone.
Or even just getting a coffee with someone in the middle of the day. Like, I just want to have coffee. That's all I want to do. Yeah, maintain your sanity while you're. And
just, I mean, trusting your gut no matter what. I mean, and just knowing you can. And I think that's the American part that is great, that we don't give up, and we try our best to make it work.
We just do it. I know that is like so American, right? I know, it's just like, oh,
I mean, and
I'm just gonna go do that now. Okay, you don't have to think about it. You don't have to just consult many people. Just go and do it.
Just jump in.
Speaking of mentors, there are positive things with mentors, but I had a mentor who actually had the balls to tell me to stop being so American.
Really?
What? Needless to say, I didn't continue with him.
What context was this in your Hemsbrook context?
No. This was with the Nyföretag Centrum.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Don't be so American.
I'm like, okay.
Yeah, that's not going to work.
No.
Lucille, do you want to jump in? Do you want me to unlock the seat and you can join us? Feel free to jump in or text on the side, whatever you feel comfortable doing. I think that for my own experience, like just going from public health and then switching into a role as consultant actually worked out really well, because the consulting role is geographically independent. So we could be on vacation and I could still work, which was a positive and a negative, where I was then working all the time and with very Swedish culture where you're supposed to like unplug and not continue working. But I would work whenever and bill hours at night. And so it was flexible with like my life as a mom, where I could still be home with the kids, and then I would work 7 to 10 or 7 to 11 every night on conference calls or emails or doing work. And so it made for a really long day. But I just kept saying, like, okay, like, this is worth it because I can be with my kids all day and then work at night. And, you know, you can be really productive in 4 hours a day. I mean, you can be very productive. So pull those hours wherever you can. You can still find time to do work. And so I was doing that. And then my role as a public health consultant just sort of gave me the balls to be like, I can figure anything out. And so that's why I pursued publishing a book, because I'm like, I can figure this out. Like, I'm an intelligent person. I can do.
What do you have to lose?
Yeah, what do you have to lose? It was a new challenge. I love new challenges. I love learning new things and meeting new people and talking to people about their life and where they're from, and just I ask questions. I'm a scientist, so I ask a lot of questions, and I just found myself like asking people questions, and then I'm like, this is really interesting. I really like this, and I can figure out how to make this all come together and do it. And so I think that your experience, like, no experience is wasted, and your training and all that you did in your past life before you became a mother, before you became an expat, whatever, you can use to your benefit, even if it doesn't apply directly. Like, there are always skills that you've acquired throughout your life that make you a valuable person, a valuable worker in your new life and your new role. So I think that
I completely agree with that statement. I mean, it's the same. I feel that way so many times during the day, because it's like, you know, you'll meet someone and you'll think, oh, okay, that, you know, has, you know, no relevance to what I'm trying to do. But at the same time, you're always, you know, thinking, okay, well, maybe our paths will cross in something else. You know, you never know. And so, I don't know, it's always kind of neat to, especially like on Facebook now, where everything is, you know, like in Sweden, a lot of things are so social because we have our expat groups, and we make these little communities on these Facebook, you know, groups and pages. And I think it's so much fun because then you start seeing the same people in different areas, and you're like, oh, how cool. And then you'll learn something about them. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, that's so cool. We have this in common. So I think it's so neat that, these doors can be opened for us in Sweden.
Well, Courtney, you and I have something in common. I've been to Lake Placid numerous times because I worked as a hike instructor, rock climbing instructor at Silver Bay YMCA, which is about an hour south on Lake George of Lake Placid.
Oh my gosh.
To go up to Lake Placid all the time. It's like a weekend trip, and like go do, and they had like the woodsman games, like where the guys would go up, chop down the trees.
Exactly. I know. I've seen them.
We used to go to those, and like that was like what we did in the summer, and it was so nice to like go. So Lake Placid has like a very special place in my heart, and I'm sure yours, but for different reasons.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's so cool. What a small world, right?
Such a small world, because it was always fun to like go see the old Olympic stadium, old ice rink, and they had 2 Olympic games there. So they had the really old one from like 1912 or 1914, and then the
1932,
and then 1981 when America, Russia, and the big hockey match. So I've been there too.
A lot of hockey fans. My husband's a hockey fan, so we had to go see the rink.
Well, of course he's Swedish.
We would do a lot of training on that rink too, so it was kind of cool because he got to go on the ice and everything. So
nice.
Lake Placid has a very special place in my heart. I mean, I spent so many years at the training center there, and so many summers, so many hikes. You know, a lot of friends.
It's gorgeous. Yeah. Just surrounded by beautiful Adirondack Mountain.
Yeah,
we have that in common.
Another thing I was thinking about while we've been talking here was this whole concept of being a housewife. I remember when I moved here, that was one of the things my husband, like the first thing he told me, he's like, you know, you can't be a housewife here. So, I mean, just speaking to cultures and whatnot.
You absolutely can. It's just not done.
It's just not done. So
you'll be the only one.
It's done in a different way, because when you're mama ledig, you know, when you're on your parent leave, I mean, you're technically, I don't want to say housewife, because I mean dads are home too, but you're the house parent, let's say,
Yeah.
but you're also getting, supplemented.
Right.
And so it doesn't feel like you're, necessarily a so-called housewife. But I mean, people do that for almost a year when they have a baby, But no, the stay-at-home mom thing where they're, your kids are home until 5, no, that does not happen. Yeah.
I think that is a recent thing. That is a recent thing because we've moved around a lot in Sweden, but at one of our old houses, the neighbor was an elderly Swedish woman, and she saw me taking my son Calvin to school, to daycare. He was 18 months old or 20 months old or something. He was under 2. But he was definitely older than like the American 6 to 12 weeks of like, we're starting school now. This is it. And she was like, I stayed home until all my children were 5 years old. And she was like, you're sending him too young. And she was very judgmental about it and like upfront telling me that I was wrong. And I was like, what? I'm like, am I not in Sweden where like this is expected?
That's like so backwards. Yeah.
Mom here. What do you mean? And so I think that there's an older generation of Swedes who they did stay home, and that was culturally acceptable to stay home and be home with your children, no problem.
Yeah.
You'll go back to work eventually and that's fine. But no, not anymore. Now it's very much like, we've given you your time, go back to work.
Yeah. It's funny. This conversation reminds me a little of what my husband said one time, because, okay, when I say this, don't get the wrong impression because I'm going to correct him in a bit. But at first he was like, man, American women are so lazy. Like all they do is stay home after they have a baby. And I'm like, what are you talking about? What? And he's like, yeah, I mean, all you guys do is stay home after you have a baby. You just quit your job. And I was like, do you realize that we have to go back to work 6 weeks after you have a baby?
Lucky,
otherwise,
right.
Yeah, your little tiny baby that you have has to go into daycare. He was like, what? I mean, it wasn't even a concept that, you don't have parental leave.
Yeah.
I mean, so that here, now that we've had that time to, be home with your child and not really have that pressure to get back to work. I mean, it's almost like, the rest, US, hello, catch up. Like, you guys are so far behind with being able to really take care of people and families.
Did his attitude change after he had his parental leave time?
Okay, I only hesitate because, we're being self-employed with you, you guys are too. You don't ever feel like you can take your leave, but you're always working, right, even after the kids go back to sleep. I mean, exactly. You are responsible for your livelihood, right? And so even the supplement that you get, you still have to continue business in some sort of way. Even if it's only that part-time. And we've never honestly taken like true parental leave off. We've always taken just either half days or a day here and a day there, because we've always had to have our work going.
We have to have income. We can't just let it go.
Yeah, exactly. So we've never truly had like full parental leave, either of us.
Yeah, no. My husband took it was closer to 7 months off from his office job. And he was like blown away. He was like, this is so much work. I cannot believe, like, it was truly, he walked like 10 miles in my shoes as opposed to just a mile. Like, he was there, he was in it, he was living in it. And I didn't do him any favors. Like, I was not answering questions. I'm like, pretend I'm not here. I'm working now. Like, even though I work from home, like, I'm working, go away. Like, I'm not going to answer your questions. You figure it out. You find out where the wipes are. You go find out what size diaper she's wearing. I'm not going to tell you, because if you keep like answering all those questions, they never learn. And no one was there to answer my questions when I had them. Right. I figured it out. Yeah. Like what size diaper should I buy? I don't know. How much does she weigh? Well, I don't know. I wasn't paying attention. Well, that's your problem. Like, so yeah, there were mistakes, and yeah, it wasn't perfect, but just like me, I made mistakes in the beginning too. And that's how it goes. So you learn. And so he definitely had full immersion in the dad experience. Solely responsible for my daughter. I didn't give him both kids at the same time. He often took both kids at the same time, but we did, split quite a bit. But he's still, you know, and to this day, he's like, I love it. He's like, I wish I could take more time with my, you know, like, you know, like it is that time. And I think that if we hadn't expatriated, we never would have had that time. And that would have been a huge shame and a huge, you know, disservice to.
Those are some of the positives of living here. I mean, the way the system's set up, it makes it possible for us to work and have that family life. I mean, I think that's why I always keep thinking like the quality of life here is so much better because of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that people here, like people who work, they totally like let you take off if you need to go pick up your kid. You need to, you know, go somewhere. You just want to spend time with your kid. No one like cross questions you like, where are you going? You know, why do you need the day off?
Yeah, you're like, my kid is in the hospital. They're like, go. What are you doing? Go. You're like, okay, you just go. And that's
family guilt is definitely not anything that is, you know, relevant here. At least not that I've experienced. I know I've heard of it in a little, you know, in some areas and some companies, but for the most part, I mean, it's completely understood, you know, stood that when you have kids, they take up time. You know, they take up a lot of time. They have a lot of needs, and as parents, you have to take care of those things. So, you know, that's, you know, everyone's going, you know, home a little earlier to pick up someone from doggies or whatnot. So, you know, it's always a compromise. So I think it's nice that it's understood.
And especially for us that, I mean, I know we don't have anyone else. It's just me, my husband, and my daughter. So it's like, we've got to do it all ourselves, which I'm sure, you know, you might be in the same boat. So it's really helpful to have that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think the Sweden's strong social network is so helpful for expats. It's such like it is a security blanket, not only for, you know, for the people. I mean, granted, you pay into it. It's not free, but it is, you know, not that
it, you know,
it's worth it. And it's not that much more expensive than what we were paying in the US. So it's like, especially in California, your California taxes were ridiculous.
Let's not go there.
So yeah. No, so I think we all here find it very worthwhile and a positive experience. When people complain about it, I'm like, you have no idea.
Exactly.
Yeah, the only thing I have a hard time dealing with is that, you know, as being self-employed, I think a lot of people hear that it sounds like such a luxury, you know, like that we have so much time off and we can do whatever we want, and it's truly not the case. I mean, you know, in regards to having clients and everything, you're really at their service, and so you need to work when they need you. So, I mean, that kind of takes away a little bit of freedom of being, you know, so-called, you know, a luxury self-employer, right? But it's also like finding that balance between family too. And I've found that a little difficult because, you know, granted, I do spend time with my daughter during the day, you know, after she comes home from doggies. But then, you know, Lisa, as you mentioned, like then after she goes to bed, then I work until 10, 11 o'clock at night. And so, yeah, that balance sometimes goes away of, okay, there is that family balance, but at the same time, there's not, especially when you're, you know, self-employed. So I think that makes it a very difficult thing to balance. What do you guys feel on that aspect of things?
Even though I'm self-employed, I've been getting stricter about not doing work after a certain time. I just don't, because it's never ending. I need to turn my brain off. Otherwise I'm not going to be able to work. I'm not good to anyone.
Yeah.
So I've really been really strict about that. So, and it's been great, actually.
Yeah.
I
think once I start learning Swedish, or when I get better at Swedish and I don't have to study for my driver's test, I think that'll balance out a little bit more.
That was the most traumatic thing I've ever taken.
You need to focus on the driver's test. Like, you need to shut out the world and just focus on that. It's no joke. It's
probably one of the most frustrating things to be doing, honestly. Like, just, I've been taking driving lessons and you're just like, really?
We should have a whole blab on just like how to ace your driver's test. My husband and I both passed it the first time.
Oh my God.
I know. 2 American drivers passing the driver's test. Nice. And like, it's the best advice that was given to me by the driving instructor when I was taking my final lesson. She was like, you're driving, you're in control. Yeah. We are along for the ride. And I was like, okay. Like, even though the tester is evaluating your every move, like, you're the one in control. You know, you already know how to drive. Like, right. I loved it. It was like me and a bunch of 18-year-olds, like, doing the risk course. And I'm like, I'm the oldest person here by a lot. And, but yeah, but it's just like, they have no experience driving. Like we have we have experience on our side. So that helps a lot.
Yeah. Yesterday, I'll tell you something funny. Yesterday I was doing my driving lesson, and the driver kind of said to me, I wish I could do this all day because I'm just kind of having a joyride right now, because he wasn't scared. He wasn't like having to like hit the brake or anything like that. So it was just really, really funny to at least know that, okay, good, knowing that I can drive and he can relax a bit. So it's rather funny.
You're going to be fine. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. Okay. Well, anything else you guys want to talk about before we wrap it up?
Just do it.
Just do it. I think I wrote on one of my posts on Facebook, I was like, just roll with it. Like, yeah, it's weird or it's different or it's scary or it's fun.
There's always going to be something,
Yeah.
So, and you're going to regret it if you don't try.
Yeah.
Yeah, that goes for, everything. I mean, parenting, moving to a different country, starting your own business. I mean, you're going to learn along the way. Things are going to change. You're going to learn different things that might change your path too. So it's really just starting and, having a rough idea, but then, you'll find your way somewhere. I mean, I guess that's the metaphor for life too. Oh, look at that.
You'll find your way. All right. Well, thank you so much. And feel free to share this session on your social media sites.
Yeah, thanks for setting it up.
Yeah, thank you, Lucille, for joining us. We appreciate having you here. And that's it. We'll talk to you guys later. Thanks.
All right. Bye.